Real Men Feel with Andy Grant encourages men to allow and express all of their emotions. Despite what you may have been told, all emotions do serve you. All links mentioned in each episode are in the show notes found on the blog at realmenfeel.org. Now let's get to it. Hello and welcome to another edition of Real Men Feel. This is your host, Andy Grant. I'm also a coach, author, and healer. And, one of my favorite things about Real Men Feel is the eclectic subject matter and the wide variety of guests I get to talk to. And this is despite having numerous media professionals tell me I should focus on just one aspect of men and build a large audience by focusing on just this one thing. And if I did that, I would be bored to death. I think I would just hate that. And a show like today wouldn't happen. In the past, we've done shows about the connection between men and their dogs, but we've never expanded into the greater animal kingdom. So I'm really excited today. My guest is scientist, author, and storyteller, Dr. Caitlin O'Connell, who joins us to discuss male elephant society and what humans can learn about rituals from animals. So welcome to Real Men Feel, Caitlin.
Thanks, Andy. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to this. A mutual friend put us into contact, and she heard of your research with elephants and everything you learned about male elephants and society, and just thought it would fit with me, and it did.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you and your audience about this because there are so many amazing parallels between male elephant society and male humans.
Cool. What first got you interested in elephants? Has it been since you were a little girl, or?
I've always been interested in animals and animal communication. And my first love was frogs, and then it went to insects. But really, the opportunity to study elephants came when I was volunteering in different game parks in Africa. My boyfriend at the time, now husband, and I took a year off between graduate degrees, and we were volunteering in a game park, and they asked us if we wanted to do this elephant study, and we're like, what? Absolutely, yes. and there are many reasons why elephants appeal to me, because they communicate long distances, and I always loved animal communication. And it just, one thing led to another, and it quickly became my life's work. And once you study elephants, you can't really go back.
All right, so tell me about elephant communication. I don't understand how do they communicate long distances?
Well, that has been a subject of my research for a long time. Elephants have this low frequency rumble that propagates through the ground, through the air, very long distances, and elephants, they have big ears for a reason, not just to cool themselves, but also to use them as a parabola to pick up these low frequency sounds, and their middle ears, their cochlea, are set up, designed to detect low frequency sound at the threshold and below threshold of our hearing. So at 20 hertz, and males actually produce rumbles at 10 hertz. And that low frequency signal then propagates long distances. And so my first work on elephants was really looking at how their vocalizations are made and propagated, and the physical structure of them. But at the same time, I was also helping people keep elephants out of their crops. So there were many different aspects of elephants that I was actually contracted to the Namibian government to do a study on how elephants use their environment, and how to take that knowledge and help farmers deter them from coming into the cornfields and eating all their food.
So is there really a language behind the vibrations?
Yes. The vibrations that are made as the elephant vocalizes is essentially the same signal as what gets propagated in the air, but it just gets also propagated in the ground because elephants are so heavy, and the vocalization is so low frequency and created at such a high sound pressure level. It's like a mini explosion at 120 decibels. This sets off a ripple across the surface of the earth, and other elephants can detect that signal as a vocalization.
And what's unique about elephant society that got you excited?
Oh my gosh, elephants are so much like us that I would, it's just like looking in the mirror. It's so unbelievable. I mean, you think, okay, a great ape looks similar to us, so you could kind of expect that they would have family structure and similar politics. But elephants, with this crazy, crazy long nose and long teeth as tusks and giant ears, they also have very similar family structures and family politics and male-male bonding and male politics. The same, backslapping in the bar and, kissing the ring of the Don and having muscle do all of your dirty work for you. It's just like being an anthropologist and kind of having a secret window into this other society that happens to be elephants.
That's fascinating. So is there anything that male humans can learn as a good example from male elephants?
There are many things. One of the most striking, and I think this is how we got connected originally, was that young male elephants, just as young male humans, really need mentors. And to see that out in the wild, to see the importance of mentorship, is a double reminder of how it's important to us and how we need to pay attention to that and really help young males and females, but in this male society, help young males have role models and actual physical mentors. So what happens out in the wild with elephants is that there's a lot of hormonal influence of an older bull on a younger bull. A younger bull, if he was not in proximity of an older bull, he would go into the hormonal state of must much sooner than he would otherwise. And must is like rut in antelope, where in antelope, all males go into this state at the same time. It's the mating season, and they all fight each other for access to mates and whether they bellow and roar as well. But in elephants, it's more of a gentlemanly turn-taking, that one male goes into must and the others do not. Or he goes away from his group and seeks out females and then comes back months later when he's not in must anymore. So what happens with these young bulls, if there's no older male in proximity, they go into must much earlier than they should. And this has been shown in 2 parks in South Africa where many different animals were reintroduced to an environment, including young male elephants and rhinos. And there's always a contention between elephants and rhino to begin with. But these young males, without the oversight, hormonal oversight of older bulls, kind of went berserk. They were really, really aggressive, went into, had high testosterone spikes, which is the signature of must, and killed rhinos, a number of them. And in both situations, the park managers realized, oh, okay, let's bring in older bulls and see if that will sort this out. And even just the mere presence, they didn't know these older bulls, but the mere presence of this older bull caused them to go out of must and stop behaving so erratically. And it's a fascinating demonstration of how mentorship and even physical proximity is important, whether you're watching the behaviors of that mentor or having that mentor teach you certain things. And in elephants, that's really important. Cultural knowledge being passed on to the next generation is really important. And so in many ways, male elephants really learn from and look up to these elders because they grow up in families just like we do. And at that coming of age time, when they're 12 to 15, they leave their families. And they're so social, they just came out of a very social situation. They don't want to be alone. So they look for older males to take them in. And they really do literally take them under their wing.
That's fascinating. Does this happen in other species at all, or is this really elephant specific?
Well, elephants are unique in terms of how male-driven their male societies are, or how male-centric, I should say, where, in chimps, there'll be male-male coalitions, but even their dominance decisions and how they behave towards each other is still influenced by females because females are still there. They're still living in a mixed sex situation, whereas male elephants are not. They live in these all male societies and all male bonded groups within that social network. And so decisions are made based on purely out of dominance, not out of reproductive or competition over a female that might be present. Like, oh, I'm going to do this and, impress this female. That's not how their society works. So it's an interesting model for many human all-male societies and kind of ritual behaviors within these societies that elephants have this all-male groups. And sperm whales are similar. They have these all-male bachelor groups that don't interact with the females. So there are a few examples, but not as many as you might think.
So it's the males kind of have their own society until they create a family, and then they stay with the family, or does the males kind of not stick with the family?
No, they don't. They'll go into this hormonal state of must. They'll look for females that are in estrus, which is like a dog in heat. So she's cycling. The male will mate guard her for several days while she's cycling, the must male, and then they reproduce, and then he goes back to his male society. So he's not involved at all in the rearing of the next generation. The only time he then interacts with family is if they overlap at a water hole, and young bulls might come and get curious about the older bulls and come and investigate them, and many older bulls will let them, some will not, because there's all different adult male characters. There's the bullies, there's the diplomats, there's the politicians, there's the punching bag. There's all these different characters, and they really do have a permanence to that character. We're looking at a data set right now over 5 years and showing how really the diplomat always stays the diplomat and makes decisions to either reject a bully. When he sees a bully coming in, he'll try and keep him away from the group. And when he sees one being aggressive to another, he will go out and try and stop the fight. And so it's really fascinating to see this parallel universe between elephant males and human males. Again, in the bar, that kind of backslapping. They love tactile interaction. These males, they love touching and trunk over the head or touching their ear to the body of another. They're always in tactile contact within their bonded groups. And these bonded groups have a leader, and leadership is not a word that one should take lightly, because leadership implies that you are trying to influence the group to help the group, not just being on the top of the totem pole, let's say. So dominance and dominance hierarchies, that dominant individual is the highest ranking individual. But when you say like in baboons, let's say the yellow baboon, being on top of the dominance hierarchy does not necessarily mean you're a leader, because the females in the group lead. The male's just trying to make sure he stays dominant, but he doesn't care so much about the outcome of the group or whether they get enough food to eat. But in elephants, it appears that dominant bull is making decisions not only for the safety of himself, but for his group, because there's this realization that being in a group has benefits. You can coordinate, you can form coalitions and protect your territory. Now, they don't have territories, but they have these home ranges and water sources within the home ranges that they form these intimidating situations to force others to stay away. And it's very blatant. They'll stand, it's like taking all your guys with the muscle and standing up with their muscle shirts in a line. These guys will take their ears, hold them straight out, hold their shoulders up, and then take their eyes and look down at this individual male as he's walking past to intimidate him. And it works. These bulls do not want to walk past that wall of shame. They're really spend a lot of energy on nonverbal cues to intimidate others away. And you can only do that, you can only coalesce these coalitions by being in a bonded group and communicating with each other. And it's really interesting to see how male elephants do that, even to the point of the lead bull will say, okay, let's go, it's time to leave the water hole, and we all leave together. So he rumbles and the rest of them respond, just like a family group does. But in male elephants, this shows that they didn't just randomly show up at this water hole and randomly happen to choose to leave in the same direction. The dominant bull is actually coordinating them all and saying, okay, let's go. He makes a decision about what direction to leave in. He spends a lot of time doing that. And then everyone follows him out in a line. So these bonded male groups are, it's a little bit surprising because people think that male elephants just kind of wander around in the bush and don't have friends. They bump into somebody, but they really have these very bonded groups that they have deep relationships with each other within these groups, and it's just fascinating to see. I mean, male elephants wear their heart on their sleeve. They really spend a lot of time, you know, just kind of tussling with each other. And it's very different than the females. Females are business only. They go into the water hole. They got to protect all the little ones and make sure that some other family, aggressive matriarch from another family, doesn't push them out. So they're always, they don't really relax as much as the males do, and they don't spend as much time with tactile interaction. So male elephants are just a fascinating way for us to learn more about what's important within these bonded groups, and what we should pay attention to. How do we get closer to each other? And tactile interactions are a really important part of that, which is also why makes the pandemic even harder to deal with, because we can't shake hands, we can't slap each other on the back, hug, all these things that elephants love to do and male humans love to do. We can't do them right now, and it just highlights the importance of these behavioral interactions.
Is there anything that you see watching male elephants in society and their interactions? Is there anything that you see that you wish, I wish male humans did that more, or this would be a great thing for them to carry on or teach us?
I do. I see these gentle old bulls and how they deal with these rambunctious youngsters. So being dominant, there's all these different ways in which an older bull knows that he can't let a youngster get away with something. It's just like humans, Dad, can I have the keys to the car? Always pushing, and trying to get what you can get and what angle you can get it at. Older male elephants see the younger males doing this, and the nicer, smarter older ones don't just like tusk them aside or give them a trunk slap. They actually just gently nudge them away. So an example would be a younger bull is trying to access the best water, which is a dominance position, and he knows it. He's trying to get at this older bull, and the older bull sees him trying to stick his trunk into the best water, because elephants love fresh water, so the dominant individuals always get to stand at the source of the spring, because that's where the freshest water is. So these youngsters will try and slip their trunk in there to get the best water, and a bully would just shove him away. But an older, gentle bull just leans up against that young bull like, no, and kind of pushes him aside. If he comes back, which they normally do, oh, no, come on, I really want to get in there, then he'll just use him as a scratching post. He'll distract him. And I think that's a really important message for us, is don't just use physical force, but distract them away to some other thought, and get them, because when you want something, you're so fixated on it, and you just keep trying, and these older male elephants help the young males just break that and distract them away from what they're trying to do. And I see that in so many different ways in male elephant society.
The old myth of elephants never forget. Does that kind of is that coming from this ancestral passing on of knowledge, this mentorship idea? Is that connected at all, or where does that come from?
Well, as I said earlier, elephants, they do pass on knowledge to the next generation. And so to have a repository of this knowledge and to be able to pass it on is really important. So having long-term memory of what you learned from your grandmother or one of the elder bulls allows you then to pass that knowledge on to the next generation. And for elephants, you know, they're migratory animals and they have to remember these long distances that they travel and where those paths go, and say when the fruit trees are ripening along a certain corridor at a specific time of year. That long-term memory facilitates their survival for that purpose, but also for cultural transmission of this very important knowledge. You know, elephants need to learn what is safe to eat. And this ritualized greeting behavior of placing the trunk in the mouth, which is a very trusting thing because someone could bite it, that behavior evolved from the desire to figure out what that other elephant is eating. And so youngsters do that, and then this behavior got ritualized into purely just a greeting behavior. But youngsters still need to learn from others what's safe to eat. And so that knowledge gets passed down to them from the older generations. But then when things in the environment change, when it dries up, the older, wiser individuals in the group help that group succeed more than younger families that don't have that repository of knowledge within their family. They don't do as well because they don't know as many options for how to deal with stressful situations. So having that long-term memory is beneficial on many levels.
Is there always just one diplomat and one bully, or is each one different, and you could have multiple variations of these different personality types?
Well, you know, that's a good question, because within families you do see the matriarch, the kind of general, the diplomat, and then a kind of secretary of state. Sort of, you know, there's leadership that's spread amongst the older females, and within these specific genres. And for males, it's the same. There might be several diplomats, but usually one that really makes a statement about bullies. And bullies evolve out of being a bully if there's an opportunity to be more of a dominant individual. What I've seen, and I write a lot about this in my book Elephant Don, about this amazing dominant bull and his posse that's about 15 other elephants. One year he disappeared from the population, the year that we decided to film him, of course. Like, that's the most constant thing in the environment. Greg is going to be there, and he's not. So what do we do? How do we solve this? Is to look at what happens when the kingpin is removed from the society. What happens? Our two biggest bullies were Luke and Prince Charles. Our two bullies were, they immediately started being more diplomatic with the younger ones and tried to build posses of their own, and were much less aggressive. And so to see how a bull will react to their social environment, you know, their characters are somewhat dependent on the habitat environment, but also social environment. But yet, over time, when we look over a 5-year period of both wet and dry years, you still have this core personality trait that you're either really outgoing and affiliative, more likely to reconcile, whereas you can also have bulls that are much more likely to charge first, ask questions later. And where then you have Greg, who's the most dominant individual, and he's somewhere in between. He's got the carrot and the stick, and it more individuals move in that direction when they're climbing up the dominance hierarchy. That they know that we can see that the other individuals don't like to hang out with bullies, and bullies don't necessarily want to be around others, but when they do, they're too aggressive, and then they've got to temper their behavior accordingly. And it's really fascinating to see over the years, to watch these different characters evolve based on what their interests are in that group. So there are not many, let's say 2 or 3 individuals that were as close as possible to the Don position, but were not politically motivated at all. So when the Don disappeared, they did not become the next Don. They just were very well liked, but they never took on that role. And so it's very, just as we all have our own personalities, they all have their own characters that are influenced by the others that are around them and by the environment. So that's just another way to highlight how similar they are to us, and what being able to watch their male society over the years has really helped me see that even more, how similar we are to elephants in so many ways, and how much we are a social animal confined by all of the same things that other social animals are. And that's actually why I got inspired to write Wild Rituals, my latest book, is because I wanted to show how similar we were to these other animals, and how ritual is so important to bring us together and to keep the peace. And there's so many fascinating parallels that I was excited to put those on the page so that people could really experience them for themselves.
Ooh. So for animals and humans, why are rituals important to begin with?
Well, it's interesting. You wonder, why are there dawn choruses? Why does the lion roar at dusk and dawn? Why do they do that? Well, if you can look at it as keeping the peace. They're defining a boundary, and this is their area, and then the other pride over at that other waterhole roars at dawn and dusk to define their territory. And this is an important ritual for them to keep the peace. Now, greeting also is a ritual to keep the peace. The handshake, originally it's thought that it evolved to show that you were not carrying a weapon. And for the elephant or the wolf, it's very disarming to place yourself in a very vulnerable position, put your trunk in the other's mouth, or to for a wolf to lick the mouth of a dominant individual that could bite you. It's a demonstration of trust and that you don't mean any harm. So it's very disarming and brings peace. Now, hormonally, it also stimulates hormones like oxytocin. When we gaze at each other, when we smile at each other, it's called the bonding hormone. And it even works between yourself and your pet, your dog. Dogs also, when they gaze at you and you gaze at them, it's just like the mother-child bond or parent-child bond, where you both get this release of oxytocin, which makes you feel good, warm and fuzzy. So there are many reasons, and as far as, I talk about 10 different rituals, but let's use another example of group rituals. Group rituals, anthropologists thought evolved in humans to help us to facilitate hunting. So, in the early days, when we were hunter-gatherers, we had to take down giant sloths or mammoths. Well, you can't do that by yourself. You need a whole group, and you need to trust that group, and you need to work as a unit. And so group rituals were thought to evolve to facilitate bonding within that group and building trust. And so lions do the same thing when they're hunting. They have all of these different rituals to stay bonded to each other, and they have different positions that they take. So there are so many rituals in nature that are enacted for a very specific purpose. And for us in our daily lives, I have a little ritual right before I sit down to do my writing in the morning, and I meditate, and I have a few little talismans of at my desk that I hold in my hand, and it's kind of rituals help comfort you. They help you really know what to do. I mean, rituals in throughout human society have really helped us feel more comfortable and more bonded to each other. You know, it's easy to think about how that might play out in a religious group, or if you're a synchronized swimmer or in a marching band. All of the physical repetition that goes into a ritual actually forces your brain to focus and to be more concentrated. So there's lots of ways that rituals make us stronger and help us think better.
Are there any wild rituals that you witness and you think, wow, I wish more people would do this?
Well, just even the simple greeting. I mean, elephants do not overlook the greeting ritual. Dogs will never not greet you when you come home. You know, that's just not on the table. But we often will take that for granted. You know, even during the pandemic, if you're, you know, wake up and go downstairs or wherever your coffee machine is, you know, get me coffee. You might not look at your partner or your loved ones, but simply looking each other in the eye, saying hello, or saying I love you, or kiss your loved ones. These things are really important. And sometimes we neglect them. And, you know, I started writing this book before the pandemic, but during the pandemic, I had to address these issues even more so. And I think we are now much more aware of what we are losing by not being able to touch each other, to be in physical proximity with each other, to see each other smile when we're all having to wear masks to keep each other safe. All of these very simple things. In the animal kingdom, they, in my experience, elephants, even zebras, they don't overlook greeting, and it's partly a survival tactic. You have to disarm the other stallion to make sure that you all both see eye to eye and that you trust each other. And in humans, we could learn a lot from that. That, you know, even in a business situation or even with strangers, just smiling with your eyes and your mouth, if they can see you, is disarming, and it makes everyone feel good. Smiling is contagious. So it's there are many very simple things that we can learn from nature to remind us of how important these rituals are in our daily lives.
How long do you study or observe a group of elephants before the personalities become apparent to you, before you're naming them and know them as individuals?
Sometimes it's very obvious right from the beginning. You know, a very overtly aggressive bull, or a matriarch who she'll just barrel into the water hole and chase everyone else away. Sometimes it's very overt, but for others it's much more subtle. You know, Willie Nelson's one of our diplomatic characters. He's very subtle, and subtle until he really needs to put his foot down. He and Prince Charles have a tiff, and every time Prince Charles comes around, he tries to say, hey, we don't want bullies around here. We don't want you. And Prince Charles has had to adapt his behavior accordingly. I don't know what the real Prince Charles would think of all this, but he got named because he has a C cut out in his ear, and one of my students picked that name. And so, yeah, we have names for N numbers, ID numbers, and over 200 bulls cataloged, and 15 family groups. And they all have their numbers, but it makes it a lot easier to really watch their behavior and know them by giving them a name.
I want to clarify, this is all in Namibia. You're not studying
Yes.
elephants in a zoo or anything like that. This is in the wild.
No, this is in the wild. So I've had this field site for the last 30 years, and I started out working for the Namibian government, both in Etosha National Park and the Zambezi region. And ever since, you know, when I got my PhD, started at a nonprofit, Utopia Scientific, and started having regular field seasons in Namibia within Etosha National Park in the area that's closed to the public. So when we go back to the site, we get to see the same cast of characters every year, and how things develop, new babies, you know, better relations between these two families and worse relations between these two, and all of the different bull soap operas that are ongoing and riveting.
So I've had the pleasure and privilege and honor of visiting Africa twice. And the first place I visited was the Daphne Sheldrick Animal Orphanage in Kenya.
Oh, great.
I remember seeing just baby elephants that couldn't control their trunks, and I had no idea, and their trunk just spazzing all over the place, and they were just muscular, and they didn't control them, and I was getting slapped by trunks, and are you watching from afar? Are they really used to humans? Can you walk among your elephants, or how does that work?
No, no, this is a wild place. Daphne Sheldrick's orphanage is, it has to be hands-on, and these poor little calves have lost their families, and they really bond with their keepers, and they really need that interaction. And so it's wonderful to get to experience that. But for us, we are visitors, scientists that are observing them in their natural habitat and their natural society. And so we don't intervene. Unfortunately, I would love to hang out with Willie Nelson and share a orange together. But no, we don't do that. We don't feed the wildlife. We don't interact with them. We have a tower, an observation tower that's 80 meters from the waterhole, and we have a bunker that's 20 meters from the waterhole that allows us to get better ID shots. It's all about the wear and tear of the edges of their ears and the tail hair patterns on their tails. Those are the main things that we use to catalog and identify the different elephants.
What's the typical lifespan for an elephant in the wild?
Elephants are very similar to humans. Anywhere from 60 to 90. I mean, 90 is more in captivity, although there's been some studies to show that they actually don't live as long in captivity because of unhealthy conditions and not being able to, usually foot problems from not being able to walk long distances and have cement and not good conditions for them. But on average around 60, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. And sometimes in Natasha we see elephants that we think when they die natural, and you get to see the jaw because you can age them based on the how many teeth are left in the jaw, so that the elephants have 6 sets of teeth, and when the first one, if they move forward, the first one drops out and the second one erupts and moves forward. And actually another just stunning thing is that young bulls, when an older bull, his last set of teeth fall out, that is a natural way for an elephant to pass because they can't chew their food anymore. But a young bonded bull will come and chew the food for the elder and give it to him. Oh, that's just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like male elephants are much more evolved than many human males in as mentors passing it down, and as taking care of elders, in terms of comfortable with touch and emotions on their sleeve, you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
And being the dominating bull, but without only dominating. They seem to have a sense of balance, and
they
using all their
definitely have
skills.
a sense of balance. Yes, it's not all about pushing each other around. That dominant bull knows that he has to reward and treat the younger bulls well, and he seems to also have a sense that these young bulls, when they come out of the family, they're so lacking in that social interaction. They're so needy socially, and they really want to pour on all their love onto the elder bulls, and some of them don't want that. Just like, get away, it's too much. But the dominant bull will take them in. He'll even take his ear and put it over the head, like he's hugging the youngster with his ear, or he might do it with his trunk as well. But he really will take them in, and it's not all bulls will do that. Very special bulls will recognize that these youngsters need a social outlet, and they're just always touchy, and some of the older bulls are like, go away. But some are like, no, 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 come on, I know you need that. Oh, you want to suck on my trunk, on my tusk? They'll even let the younger bulls just come up and put their mouth on their tusk and suck on it. And it's like, you just wouldn't expect a big, brutish older bull to allow that to happen. And they're just, oh no, come on, come play with me. I know you want to climb all over me.
All right, love the elephants defying expectations. That's
Yeah.
so cool. Awesome. Tell me a little bit more about Utopia Scientific. I know at least pre-pandemic, people could actually go with you on a trip.
Yes, yes, we do have a donor volunteer program and a student program where people get to participate. It's similar to Earthwatch in a way, where people get to participate in the science and they become one of the people, whether they're managing the video recordings or mapping where each elephant defecates out there on the field, because we learn a lot from their poo, hormonally, genetically, and what they're eating. So our nonprofit, my husband and I started it as a way of doing more research on elephants that can be turned into conservation management, and more science awareness about elephants and the importance of keeping elephants on this earth, and also other kinds of science and public health messaging. So www.utopiascientific.com is our nonprofit.
.org.
.org. Sorry, thank you. .org. Yes, we are a nonprofit. Yes.
Awesome.
And also, depend on people's donations and to help this ongoing science.
You mentioned it. So why is it important that elephants don't only exist in zoos and circuses?
Well, elephants should only exist in their natural habitat, if at all possible. We try and show what we can learn from, the importance of their society in their intact state, and also trying to keep their migratory routes intact and really letting them live like they should be able to. Being in captivity has many downsides, and we're trying to just build awareness to how beautiful life could be for an elephant if they had enough space to live as they would naturally.
Everything you're finding and sharing, I find fascinating. And we're talking about the not typical elephants out there, and you're not the typical scientist, because you've got nonfiction books, you have fiction books, you have graphic novels. You're really bringing the world of animal research and elephants out into the world in so many different ways. I find that fascinating.
Well, I do really enjoy trying to translate science for the general public, and it kind of started as a specific challenge to see if I could do that, and then really enjoyed the storytelling that came from it, and I learn a lot more about the elephants by having to describe what I'm seeing to others, and that's been a surprisingly fulfilling component of it, but also wanting people to understand when you write nonfiction, you are speaking to a certain group of people, or science memoirs, but by writing a lot of the things that I've learned as fiction in my thriller called Ivory Ghosts, it's about the ivory trade, and it's based on a town doctor that was smuggling ivory, and our boss was chasing him in a cat and mouse kind of situation, and I turned this story into a thriller, and then have a comic series as well that matches that thriller.
So what's the best way for people to learn more about you and all that you're up to?
Well, my author site, CaitlinO'Connell.com, is where all of my books and the description of books, and then our nonprofit, utopiascientific.org. My social media handles are Elephant Skinny for Twitter, and then Elephant_Skinny for Instagram.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time. not having your research just be dry research. I really enjoy the storytelling, the entertainment factor that you bring to all that you're doing, and to spread the good word of elephants and all the other wild animals that you have come across, and the importance of rituals as well. Visit realmenfeel.org, and we'll have all the links to all the various books and projects and websites that you're up to. Encourage people to sponsor an elephant, to start planning ahead for a return to Namibia. Hopefully, not years away, months away. I don't know how that's all going to play out, but that would be great.
2022. I don't know if this season's not looking. Who knows what's happening with the vaccine? But last year was the first in 20 that we were not. First consecutive year that we couldn't be in the field. So hopefully it won't be too long, but yeah.
Cool.
But it's great. Yeah, great talking to you, and great talking about these parallels between human male society and elephants. And I think the more we can think about those parallels, the better off we'll be.
Yeah. And I invite more men to look up to the elephants. And find ways that they could be a mentor, or care for the elderly people in their community, and just realize that just like elephants, men need connection, need community, and we're all better off as partners than in competition.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Cool. So wherever you're listening to Real Men Feel, please give a share, a like, let someone else know about the importance of elephants, the importance of men, whatever strikes the chord with you most. And until next time, be good to yourself. Thank you for listening to Real Men Feel. Contact us at realmenfeel@gmail.com. Learn more about author, coach, and healer Andy Grant at theandygrant.com. If you enjoyed this episode, it would help us greatly if you gave a review wherever you are listening right now.